For my project, I chose to do napping on the night shift. I felt the article was kind of misleading because it said napping on the night shift, a 2-hospital implementation project, but only one unit actually participated. 2 units participated, but only 1 unit was actually deemed successful in the whole study. But overall, I thought the report was well organized. It was easy to follow and easy to read. The abstract offered a clear overview of the study. It touched lightly on each section of background, purpose, methods, result, and conclusion, but then later on into the article went into further detail about each one. The purpose of the study, according to the article, was to assess the barriers to successful implementation of night shift naps and describe the nap experiences of night shift nurses who took naps. So, in other words, it was to see if night shift napping was feasible, and if it was, if it actually helped the nurses. I found this information on the first page where it's highlighted under purpose. The target group for this study was night shift nurses, specifically the ones that worked 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. They chose 2 Mid-Atlantic hospitals. One was a 380-bed community teaching hospital, and the other was a 313-bed children's hospital. 6 nursing units were chosen, which included medical, surgical, emergency department, and critical care. Napping was only implemented on 2 of the 6 units, but only which was deemed successful because the other, on the ICU unit, they started the naps, but no one actually ever took more than 1 nap, so they didn't get enough information from there. I feel that they intended to have an adequate size for this study, but since only 1 of the units actually came out successful, they only had 153 forms, which I don't believe is enough to prove a point. Their hypothesis was that if night shift napping was implemented and was implemented the correct way, then napping on the night shift would be beneficial. So they were just trying to prove what they already believed. In order to collect the data, they used a single-page nap experience form. On the form, it included the time and duration of the nap, sleepiness level immediately before the nap, sleep ability during the nap, sleep inertia upon rising, which is like if they felt groggy and sluggish or if they felt alert and refreshed, and helpfulness of the nap. They based it on a 0 to 10 scale. It was pretty easy to follow. They also gave them these guidelines for implementing the naps on the night shift. They're right here. On the guidelines, it just said who should nap, where should naps occur, how long should a nap be, which is between 20 to 30 minutes, what time nap should be taken, and what is the best way to prevent sleep inertia, just trying to guide the nurses and see what their study is all about. The results were clearly presented in the text. They were started on page 6 and they went to halfway down page 7. They gave the results in number form, but I think it would have been easier to understand if they presented the data in a circle graph, just because I'm more of a visual person, and I feel that it would be easier to see and to understand them. But in the end, out of 153 naps, the nurses felt alert and refreshed at the end of 56.2% of the naps and rated the overall helpfulness of a nap as a 7.3 out of 10. So, although, they didn't get a lot of forms back, the forms that they did get back did prove that napping the correct way and enough did help in the end. And they weren't only concerned about how it affected them at work, but they were also concerned about how drowsy they were driving home after their shift. And a lot of them did report that if they did nap, it did help them stay more awake while driving home. There's a discussion at the end of the article. It's on page 7 after the results. It included why some of the nurse managers on the other 4 units did not implement the napping. A lot of the nursing managers didn't even ask the nursing staff about it. They just declined it right then and there. It also discussed how this study's findings were consistent with other studies' findings that were also conducted. Strengths. I thought that the article was easy to follow. They had like subtitle sections which was like really well organized, I thought. But I also felt that the article was kind of repetitive when talking about nursing managers that don't implement the napping and the reasons, and then the good effects napping can have while on the job. But maybe that was just to try to get their point across to the readers. The limitations for this study was that they only attempted at 2 hospitals and 6 units, and this comes straight from the article. It says a much larger sample is needed in order to identify and better understand all of the barriers to implementation, as well as the best methods for overcoming these. They also didn't collect data on each nurse, like their gender or their age, so they couldn't assess the within subject results at the end. For future recommendations, they found that we have to get over the stigma of napping on the night shift, because a lot of the nursing managers didn't attempt to implement it because of the stigma surrounding sleeping at work, just because it's always seen as a bad thing. Even though leadership literally above the nursing managers supported it, they wouldn't implement it into their units. It also made a good point that a lot of nurses don't take breaks despite a long shift duration, because they feel that they can't leave their patients, even though you're supposed to use a buddy system and have nurses cover while you're at lunch. But if they don't make time to eat and to take their break, then how are they supposed to make time for napping? So, for the references at the end of the article, 32 out of the 40 references listed were older than 5 years. A lot of them dated back to the early 2000s and 1980s, which, it's not really relevant anymore. 2 of the references weren't dated because the page could not be found anymore when I clicked on the link, so I couldn't figure out when they were written. But something that really resonated with me in this was that they said it in the article: do we only consider implementing evidence-based practice when it's convenient for management and staff? I feel like these days a lot of our world kind of is really fast-paced, and it's all about convenience, even though that might not be the best way. If it's the quickest way, then they'll do it. So I don't know, I just thought I would leave you with that thought. My references are going to be attached under my video.